again,
There's Hesha.
there she
Hey.
is.
She has a virtual background that looks like a car.
Yeah, I was at the acupuncturist and she ran late and there was no time to run home. So we're doing it in the car.
Okay.
Oh, great. Hopefully you don't needle us too much. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
That was good.
Anyway, yeah, thank you. Okay, well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day, everyone. It's so great to be here with you today. Welcome to Will Work for Food, the New Possibilities Hour. Today is January 12th, 2023. So hard to believe. But it is great to be here with you. Actually, yeah, it's the 12th still. Getting back to the new year, it's a little tough here. Anyway, so today we're so honored to have Hesha Abrams back for an encore to talk about her book, Holding the Calm, and we're so excited about that. But before we get to that, as everybody knows, there is no charge for these presentations. We just have a wonderful colleague who volunteers their time, and all that is asked is if you're able, if you would please make a donation to a food bank, either one suggested by the speaker of the day or your local favorite food bank. And Hesha will mention later her food bank, and Natalie will put the link to it in the chat. And we would ask that you let us know what you donate. That's the only way we're able to keep the total running. It's only referring to donations of which we've been told. So that said, what have we been told about, Jeff?
Jean, thank you very much. It's an incredible number today. Since we began the program, since Natalie founded this all in the spring of 2020, our generous audiences, in honor of our great speakers, have contributed $351,917.85 to food banks around the world. Wow. Thank you all so much. Jean, back to you.
Thanks, Jeff. Wow is all we can say. And again, that number is comprised only of donations that we know about. And so, you know, there are others that have donated. So the effect of this is so great. And thank you so much for being part of it. And Hesha, back to you. Hesha is a world famous mediator and master mediator, according to the website for the book. And she laughs there. She's written and spoken widely to audiences around the globe who are seeking a better understanding of conflict and ways to resolve it. And those of you who were with us when she first spoke will remember that just as this number is a wow number, Hesha is a wow speaker. Holding the Calm, you can look for that on her website or holdingthecalm.com. I'd say, Hesha, the floor is yours. Please tell us more.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, first of all, Jeff, I'm blown away. 300 grand? Unbelievable.
350.
Unbelievable. 350. I mean, we just have to do like a shout out kudos to the organizers of this, because it's really you guys. That's awesome. I mean, you think about how often we all think, I want to do something, the problem seems too big. What's my small little contribution going to be? And this group of whatever, 4 or 5 of you got together and said, you know what? Let's do this cool thing. Why not? And $350,000 later, you know, it just goes to show what a small group of determined people can do when they want to do something. You know, that's just marvelous.
Thank you. Well, it's the brainchild of Natalie Armstrong Motan. She's the one who got the ball rolling, Hesha, and she really deserves the biggest shout out of all.
Well, God bless you, Natalie.
I do appreciate the shout out, but it really is a collective community response. I didn't put $350,000 worth of meals on tables. I didn't put together 4 million meals. That was our community, the legal and the resolution industry. That was you all that did that. So I do appreciate the shout out, but it really was a community.
Isn't this wonderful? And it's an unintended segue for me, but it's something that I want to talk about. Natalie, are you able to throw up a quick poll? Are you able to do that quickly, or is that a pain?
I'll do my
So-
best.
I'd like to know, we've got 35 people on now, and usually people dribble in as we get started too. I want to know how many people saw me speak on We'll Work for Food in November. I think we did it in November. Because I want to know how many have already seen it, because I don't want to go over the same stuff. I want to do an advanced class today, and I didn't prepare a fancy PowerPoint or any of that because I've got more advanced people on the group today. If you missed it the first time, first of all, read the book. It's going to give you a lot of, good stuff in it. And it's a 2-hour read. It's a quick, short, easy read. But if you go to my website, holdingthecalm.com, I've done 1 million, well, I'm exaggerating, of course, podcasts and, speeches and webinars, and I throw most of them on there. There's one that I did very early on that was a webinar. And I went over a lot of the things that I went over with you guys, because I talked about the amygdala and the psychology and the neuroscience and how we get stuff done. So just in case you weren't here, I'm going to give you 5 minutes, but then I want to take everybody else on an advanced ride. So then you'll have to go back and get caught up, but you're still going to go on the advanced ride. So that's awesome, right? So let's see how our numbers are running on this poll. Okay, interesting. 1/3, 2/3. I would have thought it'd be different. All right. So maybe I'll give you 10 minutes instead of 5 minutes. So let's talk about a couple of things. Bananas. 25 cent. Sorry, I'm in my car, and how do I turn my phone off? Make sure it doesn't bother us. Because I have it on silent, but it's ringing through the car. Bananas, 25 cents each. How many would you buy? I don't know. I like bananas. I'd probably buy 2. Bananas, 4 for $1. 35% boost in sales across every gender, every demographic, every socioeconomic, every age group. It is a human being phenomenon. You want an extra 10% boost in sales? Limit 2. I'm not going to let that guy get my bananas. Right? Now, that's ridiculous. It's foolish. It's illogical for those of us that are Vulcans. It's completely and totally illogical and ridiculous. And yet it's the human condition. And what I find interesting is so much time now is being spent on the equity, diversity, and inclusion stuff, which is so important. Yes, we need it. And that's the outside of the meat suit. It's not the inside. And as mediators, I'm expecting all of us to be diversity, equity, inclusion sensitive. By definition, we are cool and marvelous people. As healers of human conflict, we have a level of sensitivity. Okay, now let's go deeper, because why would I judge you the same way as your age, your gender, your ethnicity, your socioeconomic group? Why would I do that? Now, I can look at that for clues for cultural sensitivity or awareness and understanding, but it's like that much. Now I have to look at you, and see you. Chapter 1 of the book is speak into the ears that are hearing you. We don't do that. We speak the way we speak. We value what we value, and we assume you value it too. So if I like to be like, just gonna give you a quick example. Yesterday, I was helping out an organization and they had some conflict. And so this one woman was trying to make it up to the other person. And she kept saying, "You're brilliant, you're marvelous." And I stopped her and I said, "Look at her face. It's not landing." And she didn't even look. It was just, "You're brilliant, you're beautiful, you're marvelous," because that's what she would have wanted to hear. But when I got her to stop and look at the woman's face, the woman was terrified and was actually having a fear response. And I said, "You're triggering worthiness issues inside her. You're not making her more receptive. You're making her less receptive." And I said, "I bet what you really want to hear to this other woman was you want to hear, you're competent. You're doing your job well. I'm impressed with what a hard worker you are." And she beamed. I said, "Not hard, not hard." So I don't know if everyone's read the 5 Love Languages. I love that book. If you haven't read it, read it. It's a great book. And it talks about how We love the way we want to be loved. And I take that as a corollary in our work. We validate the way we want it to be validated. And guess what? That's going to work 20% of the time. It's not going to work with everybody else. So I keep bringing us back to bananas, because what we do as mediators, as healers of human conflict, is we have to see below the meat suit into the person. And it's not hard. It's actually not hard. You don't have to hand somebody a Myers-Briggs, a personality profile, and say, let me analyze you. Within 15 minutes, I can get who you are. And because I've been doing this almost 40 years, I can do it within 5 or 10. It just depends on how much the person is talking and what they're saying. As you're practicing it, it'll take you 30 minutes. Let's say it takes you, oh my God, an hour. Who cares? They're talking anyway, right? Number one rule for us is they vent, we listen, we communicate. So go beyond all the hearing of content, because your brain can handle all that. You're listening to content. Okay, fine. I want to pay attention, by the way, to verbs. How's that? We're already starting out our talk with bananas and verbs. Everybody will remember this now. So I have a whole part about the book where, let me make it easy first. Would I talk to an introvert the same way that I would talk to an extrovert? And we're all going to go, no, of course you would. But do we take the time to say, oh, you're an introvert. Oh, you're an extrovert. Something as simple as that. An extrovert wants to have information fast and quick. They get energy externally. They make decisions usually quicker. That's the one who says the decision is only good till 5 o'clock today. Stuff like that. An introvert goes, whoa, back off, Cracker Jack. I need some time to process that. I need to think about it. I might need to consult with others. And if you need an answer by 5 o'clock, the answer is no. Where it may have been yes if you gave me a week, because maybe that's what I need. And by the way, I feel that's really disrespectful to me, or devaluing, or toxic, or harmful, or unsafe. Fill in the blanks. And that's just introvert, extrovert, just that. But because we're advanced here, we're going for the advanced class. Visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. I discussed this in the first one. So for those of you that already heard it, please indulge me for everybody else. And then we're going to go into the advanced stuff. So visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. It's the way your brain processes information. You're an iPhone or you're a Samsung. You're still a smartphone, but you just have a completely different operating system. And by the way, aren't people pretty vehement about, ugh, Samsungs are terrible, I only use iPhones. Ugh, iPhones are terrible, I only use Samsungs. Isn't that really kind of interesting? So that's what happens with the way we process information in our brains: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So what happens is that if whatever your dominant is, that's how you will talk to people. It's just natural, and that's what you do. So what I'm putting forth a challenge to everybody is develop flexibility, fluidity, and an expertise in talking all 3 languages, because it's not hard. And when you identify somebody and you speak in their language, no one's going to say, oh, you spoke to me in auditory because I'm an auditory. No, they're just going to go, you get me. I feel heard. I feel listened to. So lest you think you have to give someone an exam or really look into something or spend an hour talking to them, you can figure this out in 5 minutes. You want to know the trick? Verbs, my friends. I see what you're saying. I don't like the look of that. Bing, bing, bing. Visual learner. I don't like the sound of that. It doesn't sound right to me. Auditory learner. I didn't feel right in my gut. That doesn't feel right to me. Kinesthetic learner. Do you see how easy that is? Verbs. That's all you got to do. So that means as they're talking, you're listening for content. Yeah. We know that. You're taking notes on content, but you're listening to this other stuff. And you can put a little note on your pad. You can either put, E for extrovert, I for introvert. You can do A, auditory, K for kinesthetic, V for visual, and just put a little note, just that little letter on your little notepad when you're taking notes. Nobody knows what you're doing. Now I'm listening to you. So now when it's my turn to talk and I'm giving you a proposal, if you're visual, I'm going to say, how does this look to you? I may even take it on a piece of paper and I may even write the offer down and put it in front of them. The visual wants to see it. For the auditory, I may say, well, how does that sound to you? And I may say, why don't you say it back to me? Let's make sure we're hearing the same thing. And then they say it back. For the kinesthetic person, I may say, there's a whiteboard over there. Why don't you write down what the deal points are so we can get started on building the agreement? And now they're writing. Do you see how easy that is? Not hard at all. And you build it into something that you're doing. Because what happens with what we're talking about here, everyone's a good mediator. Everyone's read books. Everyone's taken a training. Now the question is, how do we get better? And what I'm telling you to do, I do. I've been doing this 40 years, even though Claire all kind of helps me, cover my 40 years up, right? 40 freaking years I've been doing this stuff. I'm 64 years old. I figure by the time I'm 70, I might actually be good at it. That's how I view it. Every case I do a forensic for myself. How could I have got that better? How could I have seen that faster? Oh, I shouldn't have said it that way. How else could I have done it? And you know why I do that? Not for them. I do it for me. I want to be better at my craft. I want to know how I can do things better, faster, easier. And that's why I wrote this book, because I've got so many years of doing it. And I want to share with the rest of you. Take a technique, take a tool, try it. See if it improves your practice and it lifts it up to another level. As to why it didn't get settled isn't because, mediators, we are not fungibles. We are not like court reporters. Well, you get a court reporter, whatever, it's a court reporter. We are not fungibles. We're like doctors. There's primary care doctors, there's general practice doctors, there's specialists, and then there's those brain surgeons who work at Mayo Clinic. That's what we are. And the question is, for you as a mediator or a healer of human conflict, where's the circle? Where's the environment that you work in? And wherever you work, you get better at it. You just get better and better and better in the circle in which you work. So now you need more techniques, more tools, more experimenting. And I experiment all the time. And so I'm gonna say this to you all because you're probably gonna laugh, and I did it so long ago that there's probably a statute of limitations on it already. And some of you may have heard me tell this story, but when I first started, you can tell I'm a fast talker, right? And I actually used to be an extrovert. And as I'm aging, I'm becoming more and more of an introvert, which is actually kind of interesting. So I knew I was a fast talker, and I needed to train myself to slow down when I'm talking with people who speak more slowly, because it's rude, and it's disconcerting and discombobulating, and people don't like it, but it's my natural way. So we were doing these mediations in Dallas, and they were, we did probably 5 in a day, little hour and a half, 2-hour mediations, boom, 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 on a bunch of small claim stuff when we were really building, mediation in Dallas. And so I had this mediation for 2 hours. I started it out in a Southern accent. And the problem with this is that when you start, you can't stop. I had to go for 2 hours talking like this. And you know what it did? Taught me how to slow the frick down. So when I learned how to do that, I didn't yet understand speak into the ears that are hearing you. I was just trying to match them. That's all I was trying to do. So let me give you one more of my basic things I want to do, and then I want to get into some of the advanced stuff for everybody. So everyone here knows what mirroring is, and just raise your hands for whoever I can see. Mirroring, reflective feedback, all that stuff. We all do it, right? So it's good to do it in total, a whole thing. But there's certain people, particularly driven, kind of aggressive people, that find it a little condescending. I can't say the word now. Someone help me. Condescending. I couldn't get the word out of my mouth. Condescending. So, some people love it. Some people get annoyed by it. So you need to have different tools, right? And different techniques. So here's a trick that works. You listen to them, and all you've got to do is repeat the last 3, 4, 5 words. You get the same bang, you know, which, by the way, I was going to say bang for the buck. And I just read that was a derogatory term used for prostitutes and is anti-woman. And so I'm not using it anymore. So I'm saying it to all of us so we can all not use that anymore. Like, oh God, I hate that. But you get the same impact by being able to just say the last 3, 4, 5 words. That's it. That's all you got to do. And the person will go, that's right. That's right. It's like they could have talked for an hour and you say the last 3, 4, 5 words, 6 words, but short. You got it. You heard me. You understood it. Because a lot of times they don't want to hear you repeat the whole thing back. Because when you repeat the whole thing back, there's a bit of a, look how smart I am. Look at how well I listened, that I can hear everything you said and repeat it back to you, maybe in a more efficient way, maybe flowering a little bit more. There's a little bit of that. Now, sometimes people really like it. So you're going to have to gauge, what kind of person you have. Do they like it? Do they want it? All that. So I want to give you another tool to use. You don't just have to be a monkey, repeat or parrot, repeating it back. Okay. So with that, how much time do I have left? Good. Can I go into advanced stuff now? Yay. Show of hands. Can I do that? All right, good. So, and I say, go to Holding the Calm. I've got so many podcasts and webinars. And I think the webinar was, I think it was called Weaving Influence. Hired me to do this webinar early on when the publisher hired it, when we first launched the book. And I have a lot of the background 101 amygdala building stuff in that. Okay, so what I want to talk with everyone here is large group disputes, because I have had the privilege and honor of going into communities that are being ripped apart, just ripped apart. And I think of it almost, Natalie, when you came up with this idea that, we need to put food on tables and how to do something, you have to create something and you have to deputize people and empower people to come in and help you, because it's just too big to do it all by yourselves. So let me give you just 2 examples. I've done this dozens of times, and some techniques that I invented along the way, because I had to invent new stuff, to make this thing work. And I'll let you know, what worked and what didn't. So we can try that when we have community stuff, religious organizations, boards of directors, HOAs, community foundations, anything where you've got a community and there's a lot of people involved. And normally what you do is you pick the 4 top stakeholders and then try to do it that way. But it's really hard because they always, think about politics now, they always are more strident and more polarized because they're afraid of what they have to go back to their constituencies with. And they're not going to be as good as you at eliciting information and pulling information out and talking to people. So the message will get diluted when they go talk to the constituencies, and they're afraid. So they need tools, they need help, they need support to sell the idea. Because there's lots of great things that happen with the small little group, and then the whole thing completely falls apart, right? Totally falls apart because we didn't deal with the constituencies. And what I usually do, if I have a client that will say, oh, we don't want, Jim, because, oh, he's just going to blow the deal. And I'll say, does Jim have a say, or does he have the ear of somebody who has a say? Well, yes. And I said, I want him right next to me, just like the mafia Don would have the guy he's most worried about right next to him. I want him right next to me, because I'm going to make the solution his idea. He's going to sell it. And when he sells it, the deal gets sold. Okay. Idea number 1. Idea number 2. I was asked, there was a community in El Paso. Oh, no, it wasn't El Paso, Amarillo, that was under a 10-year desegregation order. And everyone apparently acknowledged that the work had been done. Integration had happened. They weren't having any race problems or issues, but this desegregation order cost a lot of money in compliance and legal fees and reporting to the court. So the school district, the board, and a lot of parents said, can we just help get rid of this thing. Like we just, we got to get rid of this because it's just the money that we're spending on that could be going to programming and things we needed within the school. Okay, what was the problem? I think it was 12 or 15 people that were the committee that had met every single week for 10 years to discuss what was happening in the school district and to monitor it and to make sure what problems were and how they could handle things, right? And just imagine the kind of people that would give up to be on this committee every single week for 10 years. So these were people that the issue of diversity and desegregation and diversity, equity, inclusion, all that stuff was critically important to them. And what had happened? School district, the board, the parents went, yeah, thanks. We don't need you anymore, right? You cost too much money. Yeah, all right, we're going to disband you. Well, the roar and cry and scream could have been heard across the state. Now, nobody knew why, because nobody screams and says, I don't feel important anymore. I don't feel valued. I don't feel understood. Nobody says that. They come up with cockamamie reasons and excuses and justifications why what you're doing is wrong or stupid or bad. And isn't that true, everybody, in real mediations that we have? Nobody actually says the deep underneath stuff. It's your job to figure that out. So I get in and they asked me to do this pro bono, and of course I did. And this is just a funny side story. They put me up in a Holiday Inn and I got bed bugs. I mean, literally, I'm there scratching my legs. It was disgusting. And it took months for these scars and scabs to go away. It was really awful. But I was committed. We were going to do this. And so I met with the committee as a whole, and then I met with each one individually. And then I quickly sussed out what really the problem was and what was really happening. So then I was able to meet with the school board and the board of directors and say, we have to have a solution for this, but the problem is they waited too long to bring me in. And here's my another analogy. Many of you have heard me say, spaghetti sauce. Spaghetti sauce drops on the counter, you wipe it up with a sponge. No big deal. You leave it overnight, you're scraping it off with a spatula. You leave it 3 or 4 months, it's old and moldy and nasty. That, my friends, as we all know, is conflict. Why don't we take care of it when the spaghetti sauce is wet? It's so much easier. That's why I called the book Holding the Calm, the secrets to resolving conflict and diffusing tension. Because all conflict, 100% of it, starts with tension. Every single time. And the tension may be this. It could be silent tension, or it could be screaming and yelling, whatever tension. But that's how it happens. And so wipe the spaghetti sauce out when it's wet. Why don't we do it? Well, we don't know how. We're afraid. We don't know the consequences. We don't have colleagues or constituencies that are helping and supporting us. It's challenging to do that. And that's one of the reasons, again, why I wrote this book, is to have tools to wipe the spaghetti sauce up while it's wet, early and easily. So what had happened in this Amarillo case, it had been a long time. So it'd been a lot of fighting. So it's old, moldy, and nasty. It's a whole lot harder to do it. And so it can be done. More validation is needed, more listening, more appreciation. Validation is the WD-40 of conflict. It just is. But as I told you in the very first story, you have to validate correctly. You can't tell someone they're brilliant when what they really want to hear is that they're competent or they're a hard worker. So you got to understand what these people need. And then you go and you do it. And I spent an entire week there meeting with people, talking, discussing, vent, all the stuff that, we do. And what I did is I said, you know what the solution to this is going to be? We're going to have a Person of the Year awards banquet. And our Person of the Year is the committee. And these 15 people are going to be honored. They're going to get a plaque. They're going to have a dinner in their honor. And we're going to have the community and the schools and everyone invited. And we made it, simple, so it wasn't expensive, to be able to come and say, our schools run well because of you. We don't have conflict and strife in our community because of you. And I primed people so that, you would make sure they pass the mic around and no one says anything, right? So you have your shills in the audience to say what they have to say, and then it opens up. And then people said stuff. People were crying. Oh my God, it was a whole big, huge thing. Then when it was over, I met, because I'm a very big believer that my deals don't fall apart, because I do so much prep to make sure I'm creating the deal, crafting it correctly, that they don't fall apart. And I want to make sure of that. So, and the law of quantum physics is clear. After every great expansion, there is a contraction. It is the undulation of the universe. It's just the way it works. We had a great time. Oh, now I'm sad and depressed. Oh, this is good. Oh, no, this is really tired. It's just the way that human beings, societies, communities seem to work. So I knew after this big, huge, fabulous expansion, I was going to get a contraction, and I needed the deal to stay closed and be okay, because we had written up a deal and signed it and all that stuff. So the next day I had a private brunch only with the committee, and we did our own validating with each other and crying. And in the end, I didn't plan this, honestly, but it just was right in the time. We stood in a circle and held hands. And I just came up with this stupid little song that went, good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. Whoa, 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 whoa. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. I hate to leave you, but I really must say, good night, sweetheart. Good night. And I had us all sing that because they needed a goodbye song, right? These people had met with each other, loved each other, cried with each other, shared their lives with each other. And now they're just going to be discarded like an old newspaper? No. And I'll tell you, I knew what I needed to do. I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to do it until I was there, because it had to be tailored to the people. So I didn't think to my head, I'm going to stand us in a circle and we're going to sing a song. I don't know, maybe I would have had us clapping, maybe I'd had two stories, but the goal is to think of what you want to accomplish and then design backwards based on the people that are there. And this one worked. I give it to you, take it, use it in other communities. It works fantastic. All right, you want another one? Yeah? Good, okay. I've got, just so I have some participation, we got reactions. Let me see a bunch of hands up and yes, and clippings and yes, we want to do it. Okay, good. Lets me know people are listening. And that, my friends, is for the kinesthetic learners in the audience. Because think about it, this is a pretty auditory presentation. I didn't have time to put together a whole PowerPoint on it, but notice how I'm talking in visual language. I'm telling stories. I'm singing songs. I'm trying to hit everyone here, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So I do enough that I can hit all of you. You do that too when you're talking to people. Don't just talk. You're gonna lose 2/3 of your audience. Don't just write. Don't just have your PowerPoint. You need to hit all three. Okay. Let's see. This next one you're gonna like. This was again. This one actually I did I did it twice. This particular one I did it with actually 3 times. I did it with a board also. I did it with a board. I did it with a religious organization where people were fighting inside real bad. And I did it with another Texas community that, and that's the one I'll tell you about because it's actually on my personal website and it was kind of sort of a fun, publicity thing. So there was a school district in Texas, and this is 20 years ago, I think, maybe 15 years ago, that decided they were going to start teaching the Bible in the public school as an elective, but sort of kind of mandated where people needed to come do it, taught by a former Baptist minister. Well, community flipped out. So the ACLU gets involved, parents get involved. And the problem is, one of the chapters in the book I write is I call it the blame, defend, justify, death dance. Because what happens is once the blaming starts, curiosity stops, listening stops, defensiveness begins. I will defend myself. Well, now you feel blamed. Now you're going to justify it. And lather, rinse, repeat. That's how that game goes. And it is toxic and it's terrible and you never get anywhere with it. So you want to cut it off as quickly as you can and get that thing stopped. And so what had happened is everyone went, "Row." And so the group that was supporting it went, "Row." And then it became nasty, 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 right? So they bring me in. And part of the reason they bring me in is because I'm Jewish and I'm a God person. So the religious folks felt like I would get them. And because I'm Jewish and I'm more secular, the non-religious folks thought I would get them, which I found really interesting because from a skill set point of view, it's irrelevant what your background is, right? But, you know, everyone cares about that kind of stuff. So I get in, I meet with, God, there's a whole community was involved. We must have had in the ballroom 300 people, 250 people, a lot. So I probably personally met in little 15 and 20-minute interviews, maybe 100 people, okay? And got that all scheduled just because everyone needed to have their say, everyone needed to talk. So there was enough representative to be able to happen, right? And so I could really know what the issue really was, not just what it was presented to me as what it was. So then I got them to get a big ballroom and we put up, I think, 20 flip charts on easels all around the room. And I had them get me, 100 colored markers. And then I just sprinkled colored markers all on the floor, all because I want people bending and moving. Because remember, your kinesthetic people need to move. So I had them, all around. And then I have, like 250 and 300 people in this ballroom. So I stand up at front and I do my little shticky thing. And, I'm bonding everyone, I'm connecting everyone and what we're doing and why we're doing this and how we love our community and we're going to keep it together. And, all the stuff that you would do to just bring everyone together. And I do it this way and I do it this way. So I'm making sure I do that. That takes me 20 minutes of talking. And what happens, you get the more gentle people going, okay, this can be good. And you get a lot of, yeah, this is a complete waste of time. How stupid is this? This isn't happening. You're an idiot. You don't understand anything because that person's an idiot. And if you don't see it, that kind of stuff. And by the way, we had a guy running for Congress on the platform of keeping the Baptist minister. So it was nasty, nasty, nasty. And there was a federal lawsuit filed. And the federal judge had called me midway through some of this and went, "Oh, please, God, get this taken care of." I mean, this would be a terrible, terrible case for him to have to deal with. So I did my little 20-minute, spiel with them. And then I played music. Those are the days where I had a boom box. Anybody old enough? Show of hands, remembers our boom boxes? So I had a boom box and I played really pretty, relaxing music. And I said, and guess what we're going to do? I had written sentence stems on all the flip charts. And I said, I want to know what everyone in the community's thoughts are. But, we all know that some voices tend to dominate. And we all know that the more introverted folks can never get a word in edgewise on either side of this discussion. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this in silence. I'm going to play this pretty music. Everybody is going to walk around the room or in whatever order you want, however you want to do it. And you're going to write your answers to the sentence stems. And I had enlisted some, people to help me to keep it no talking at all. Like we were pretty strict on it. People wanted to whisper, we walk over to them and go, shh, no talking. And you got 300 people, right? Walking around the ballroom. And how it started out was furiously writing. I'm going to go, my opinion, like that. And after about 15 minutes with no talking and the pretty music, it started happening at the flip charts. And they started reading what the other people had to say, flipping them up. What else do people have to say? I kept that sucker going as long as I thought I could keep it going, which was honestly about 45, 50 minutes. That's how long. And probably the reason I had to shut it down is because the mind can only absorb what the bladder can hold. It's a little known Hesha rule of mediation. So you have to let people be. And I'm married to a middle-aged man, so I know even middle-aged men gotta be a little more, right? So this all gets done, right? So then what do I do from the front of the room when we come back from the break? You facilitate the flip charts. You have new flip charts up at the front, and we started seeing commonalities. And we wrote down, and I had people up front, helping me write as I'm facilitating it from the group, commonalities. So these 30 different, flip chart things that are filled come down to like what, 10, 12 things? It's pretty common. But now those are in the front. And I said, that is our roadmap to a solution. That is how we're going to find a solution. And then I started this thing that I actually learned. I took a very interesting 25 years ago, I took this course they called it anti-prejudice, to look at your own inner prejudices and things that you may not be aware of. Nowadays, implicit bias, and they call it other stuff. But back then, it's a way of looking that up. And they had a sentence stem that was so good. They used to say, how can we do X while at the same time do Y, thereby accomplishing our mutual goal of Z? So I would write that up on the flip chart, and it's very easy because that's basically the positions, but you have the mutual goal. Now, all of a sudden, instead of it being a combative, I'm right, you're wrong. No, you're just too stupid to understand. Let me explain it to you. That's what tends to happen. Now, all of a sudden, we've got a constitution that says, okay, this is a valued goal that, I kind of sort of agree with. And this is a valued goal, and I kind of sort of agree with it. And I do agree with the common goal that we all have. And now you start talking about that. Then I divided them up into little working groups of 6. And I said, and the way I did it, so they wouldn't all be with each other, which is really what Facebook should do. I mediate a lot for Facebook. I may give them this idea and tell them they should do this. Instead of that like button, you get everybody the same in a group, you don't accomplish anything. So what I did is I went around the room and we just had people going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, go, boop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, go. And just random. So now you get random people in a group together. They got to listen to each other. It's not gerrymandering political districts. You have to actually listen to each other and hear what you have to say. So now there's discussions happening. And I will tell you, this took me 5 days, a case that was destroying a community, a guy running for political office on it, a judge begging to get it done, ACLU involved. I mean, so much stuff. It took me 5 days. And we had an agreement. 5 days. That would have been in court for 10 years, right? And by doing it with these groups, now all of a sudden you've got spokespersons for the group, and we start drafting an agreement. And then we start fussing over it. And what would it look like? And how are we going to do it? And what's going to happen? And we get to an agreement. It's magic. But it takes a firm hand at the wheel and a creative mind to say, I don't see any problems. I see solutions waiting to be found. How creative can we get? How big can we get? Those of you who have read my book know the story. My husband has a friend who's a Navy SEAL. And Navy SEALs are supposed to be able to tread water until they die, right? So my husband said to him, so how long can you tread water? And he said, I don't know. I'm not dead yet. And I thought, that's how I am. That's how we all should be. How big can I get? How kind can I get? How expansive can I get? How sophisticated can I get? How expertise can I get in my craft? I don't know. I'm not dead yet. And so with that, hopefully quasi-inspirational ending, we've got 15 minutes left for Q&A.
Oh, thank you so much, Hesha. This is fantastic. Okay, well, I see Sarah here has her electronic hand up. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question, Sarah?
Thank you. Sure. And thank you, Hesha. My question was just, I'm trying to picture this room that you were describing with the, people responding to the flip charts. And I'm really curious if you could give just an example of 2 or 3 of the things you had written that people were responding to, just so I understand what kind of a flavor you were eliciting from people.
Well, Boy, you're taking me back a long time. I don't honestly remember. It was so long ago, but it would have been something because I use sentence stems a lot. So I would have done, I'm just thinking of it now, like what would I have done? I would have said something like in the Bible case, I would have said, the Bible is important, teaching the Bible is important to me because. I would have had another one that said, separation of church and state is important to me because. Teaching the Bible in school scares me because. Freedom for our kids means stuff like that. So what happens is that even we as mediators, we get afraid. You know, if the conflict is too big or too explosive or too difficult, even we think, oh God, do I want to really get involved in that? Like, holy cow. So the more you develop your own skills, the more courage and bravery you will have to actually deal with the real issue. So like I was telling you, I was doing this thing yesterday with these two employees that a big company client I know had brought me in to handle this. And we had worked through 80% of it. And I do something that I do called a do-over. Every one of us is going to screw up and be insensitive. Every single one of us. But if you say, that didn't come out the way I wanted it to, can I have a do-over? Who's going to say no to you? Then you get a chance to do it as a do-over. And if you're the recipient of somebody saying something that you found offensive or negative or hard or, something like that, you can say something like, did you intend to offend me? Which is, you can, that's an option in certain cases. Or you can say, that didn't really land right for me, or that I'm sure you didn't mean to hurt my feelings. Would you mind doing a do-over? Now they get to do a do-over. So in the one I was doing yesterday, she was really frustrated and angry about something this employee had not done. And so she sugarcoated it and made it like, well, I'd like to know if you would, and I went, no. We're doing the advanced course here. You're a human being. You're not always going to be sugar and spice and nice. There can be days you're tired, you're cranky, you're angry, you're upset, and just, God darn it, just do it. Like, what is wrong with you? That's called the human condition. How do you handle it then? And I had her do it again with a little more animus, and she was scared, but she did it, and it gave the other person an opportunity to go, oh, that didn't, would you mind saying that again and doing a do-over on that so that I can hear what you're saying to me? Because that's real life. I don't want to be Pollyanna about, oh, win-win problem solving. Ooh, it doesn't work in a lot of the cases. It works in some, it's a laudable goal, but what do we do when people are so polarized and they're so different? And I tried once and it didn't work because you're a moron, or I hate you, or you're just too stupid to understand. That is the majority of conflict. So I would rather we practice how to deal with that kind of stuff. And I'm sorry, that was sort of a segue I used your question into, but that's kind of how I look at it.
That's great. Just let me mention your food bank, Hesha, is Daily Bread. And
no. If you don't mind, it's not Daily Bread. It's All Faiths Food Bank.
All Faiths Food Bank. Okay.
In Sarasota, if you don't mind. It's all of these are good. Honestly, but the one where we are, because last time we did it, I think we raised like $1,500. That was marvelous. So All Faiths Food Bank in Sarasota.
Thank you. Okay. Does anyone else have a question for Hesha? Well, so which of these three categories are you, Hesha?
Interesting. I am absolutely visual. I'm absolutely visual, but I have worked so hard that I can handle and deal with a lot of auditory and kinesthetic because I do it for people, and it just makes you more fluid in interpersonal relations. And I don't want to set up a thing where I always tell I had a therapist once who said the best thing to me when he was doing something. I go, oh, I was trying to emulate him. He goes, don't copy off of my paper. I'm just the kid at the next desk. And I like that because this works for me. I want to empower you to find what works for you and how you want to do it and what works in your life. Because we're human beings. God bless America. I get a, you can push my buttons. I've got an amygdala. I'm tired. I'm cranky. I'm exhausted. Sometimes I'm human too. But I honestly, since I wrote the book, I've been using holding the calm as a mantra for myself. So when I can feel it, I'm just like, and I get impatient. I'm holding the calm. I'm holding the calm. I'm holding the calm. It takes 2 seconds. And literally, I feel calmer. But what it does is not just calms me down, it reminds me, I got tools. I got choices. I can choose how I want to react here. I don't just have to go "Rrr," like I would want to.
Well, that's great advice in life in general. We get to choose how to react. Carol Ann, you have your hand up.
Yes, Hesha, thank you. This is really a wonderful presentation. I'm curious because you talked about when you went to the school issue, them wanting to bring in the Baptist minister, and you said that they chose you because they knew you were Jewish, but then not religious, but then you're a God person. I was just kind of curious as to how that information was transmitted to them.
Oh, that's interesting. In that particular one, that was a pro bono case, and a lawyer for the curriculum that the school district had used was developed by the Jerry Falwell organization, just to make it a little more intense, right? And it was a lawyer at a very, very big firm in Dallas that was working for them. And he just knew me. I had mediated before. And so when I mediate with people, I just, I'm pretty open. And we just must have, at some point on some case somewhere, I must have said something about God. I don't know. And he just called me and said, would you consider doing this? It's a pro bono thing, and help this country not, this community not, fall apart. And then he told me, because I said, I don't even remember now what I said. How did I close this here? How did I do it or why? But he said that to me. He goes, I think you'd be the perfect person for it. And this was, like I said, a long time ago, where now, I've developed my skill set enough that I really like to go into a situation and think, what can I make up? What new thing can I do to create something? And I joke that we all have flat foreheads because we smash our heads against the wall so much, right? So if you've been mediating for a while and you've been doing it the same way, I'm going to encourage you, the next couple of cases, mix it up, do something totally different, do it backwards, do it upside down, completely change it, which is going to scare you. And then you're going to create new stuff. And then, you can see my face. Look at me. I've been doing this 40 years. I'm not burnt out. Really, think about that. I should be burnt out already. I'm not. And I take rests and breaks and things, but, I still kind of sort of love people. Some people kind of sort of. And it's the craft that keeps me going. Not just, I want to help people, I want to love people, because as you get older and you've done it a lot, people tend to beat a lot of that out of you because there's just a lot out there. But if you love our craft and you want to get better at the craft, look at how I'm beaming when I talk about it. What new cool thing can I possibly invent and do? And then what happens is new cool things come to me to be able to do. And now, it's enjoyable for me. I'm not retiring. I'll do this as long as, as I want to, because I enjoy it. And hopefully I've inspired you guys to be thinking about it like that too.
That's really inspirational. Speaking of, 40 years, give or take at this, Jeff, might you have anything that you would want to ask Hesha?
Thanks, Jean. I'm much more interested in hearing what all of our audience members, I know there must be more questions out there.
Any hands or just unmute yourself and speak up?
Surprised everyone's so quiet today. It's like, goodness.
Oh, here we've got a hand. Is it Dempsey? You go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. Thanks.
Not a question so much as a comment. I've been only at mediation for about 10 years, but I'm 10 years older than you are, Hesha. And same as you, I don't see retiring. All I see is progressing in what I'm doing. It's like a wonderful next step in my career. But what I want to do is thank you for validating something that I've been struggling with. I did a lot of work in my previous career as a management consultant, leadership trainer, and so on. And so all of the principles of adult education, how adults learn, how they interact, and so on, I'm very comfortable with that methodology. Now here I sit as a mediator, and I've got all this participative stuff that exists in my head. And I recently had the occasion to facilitate a conversation with a large group with a dispute. And I didn't know how to deal with it. So I resorted to my training mindset, and it absolutely worked. You did a wonderful analysis of what worked for me. But so I'm all filled up and ready to go. I'm going to do this again. Thank you
Isn't
very
that
much.
marvelous? I'm so pleased to hear that. Thank you for sharing. And do you mind if I use you as a guinea pig for the group?
I don't sing. Sure.
Is she visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, everybody? Pop it in the chat. Is she visual? She gave you a lot of clues. Visual, auditory, because I want to train you to start thinking like that, because it's just natural to me. And then I will use those verbs when I'm talking with somebody. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic. And I don't know, Delphine, you have to tell me if I'm right of what I'm going to say. Maybe I'm wrong.
Go for it. I'd appreciate the insight.
So like people saying. So I would say that you're kinesthetic because she said, I feel comfortable.
Mhm,
I participated.
mhm.
All of her verbs were doing verbs. There was no sound verb and there was no visual verb. But tell me if I'm right.
I think you've got it right. I tend to talk a lot. I'm an extrovert. Similar to you, I think I'm shifting into more of an introversion persona as I get older. But so I would judge myself as being what is it? The chatterbox.
Kinesthetic.
What is, no, the auditory, not auditory, the
Verbal.
verbal. That's right.
But it's
But
visual. It's not verbal, it's visual.
it's visual.
It's visual. But notice what she even said. I would judge myself, not I would see myself.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Or others
Yeah.
would say I am.
Yeah.
See how easy it is once you train yourself
That's
to
fabulous.
look for the verbs.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Thank you very much. Great lesson learned.
Well, I think that's our mantra for the week, right? This week, we're going to look for the verbs, and we'll have to let Hesha know, or we can all compare notes for a brief couple of minutes next week. It's been wonderful having you here. It's the top of the hour. So thank you so much for being here with us, everybody. And thank you for your donations. See you next week, same time, same place.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.